فيه من الفائزين. آمين يا رب الكريم. I hope all of you are doing very well. I know last night was an odd night, the 25th, a likely candidate for Laylatul Qadr. And so folks may be a bit, still getting up from their sleep. So inshallah, let's get straight um, into the technicals of zakah. And I will need you to pay very close attention so that inshallah, all of the salient features of zakah and how they're supposed to be calculated and how your zakah is supposed to be calculated, it all becomes super clear, inshallah. So we begin by first a discussion of zakat versus other forms of charity. Zakat is obligatory, while sadaqah that you and I give is not obligatory. In other words, you can give it or you decide not to, it is not going to be a sin as far as the Sharia is concerned. The second point is zakat has a prescribed rate, and that is 2.5%. Charity does not have any prescribed rate. Zakat is given by Muslims to Muslims, while regular charity is given by anyone to anyone. You can give it to non-Muslims as well. Zakah is restricted to 8 categories, which we will look at in a few moments. While charity, there is no such restriction when it comes to the beneficiaries. Zakah is due annually. Charity can be given at any time. Zakah is due on specific assets. Charity, there's no specific asset that you give it on. All right. So these are some of the main differences between zakat and other forms of charities. Now, what are the 8 categories of zakat? So, folks, you take note of this reference found in the Quran, Surah 9, verse 60, Surah Tawbah, ayah number 60, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outlines for us who these 8 categories of zakat are. And here's the summary that, mashallah, the wonderful people at NZF have put together. The fuqara. Fuqara is the plural of faqir, the destitute, who we would say is broken to the bone. This is someone who does not know where their next meal will come from. Then masakin, the needy. The needy is someone who is a little better than the destitute. So masakin is the plural of miskin. Then comes al-amilina alayha. These are the people who are in charge of distribution of zakat. So they may not necessarily be needy people, but to establish this pillar of Islam, this is an organization or an initiative that has been put together so that people's zakat can reach its rightful recipients. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has determined who's going to pay them their salaries. If they will be going and providing this aid to the first 2 categories, the fuqara and the masakin, right? So al-amilin alayha. Then comes mu'allafati qulubuhum, those whose hearts are very close to Islam. You on campus, you've been giving da'wah to someone, and mashallah, that individual is on the verge of accepting Islam. But the only thing keeping them away is, or keeping them from taking the shahada is, how am I going to pay my bills? I'll be kicked out of my house. Oh my God, it's very scary with the standard of living and whatnot. So to soften their hearts, to give them that push to enter into Islam, boom, you are allowed to give zakat to them. Then the captives, the indebted, in the path of Allah, and the stranded traveler. Now, when can someone start helping others? All right, what are the fundamentals of nisab? So here, the Prophet ﷺ has taught us that there were 2 standards, the gold standard and the silver standard. But what does the word nisab mean? Nisab is the threshold that one's wealth must reach to be liable to pay zakat. All zakatable assets are combined in value to reach the nisab threshold. All right. And we will get into the nitty-gritty of all of this, inshallah. So mathematically, this comes out to 2.5%. Okay, as you can see all the way at the bottom. So this means nisab is what qualifies you as a rich person, what defines you as someone upon whom zakat becomes obligatory. Okay, this is what nisab stands for. So At the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were the gold and the silver nisab, silver standard. So what this means is currently the value of 85 grams of gold stands at 13,000 Canadian dollars. So to simplify all of this conversation for you folks, if after all of your bills are paid, everything has been taken care of, you have $13,000 in your account to your name, all right? Maybe you are someone who engages in tradings and, stock market, crypto and whatnot. After all of your bills are paid and everything, you've got $13,000 left. You, my friend, are obligated to pay zakat. You are defined as a rich person in Islam. All right. Now, there's also the nisab of silver, 595 grams, which is equivalent to 1,000 Canadian dollars. Now, it's just remarkable that at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 85 grams of gold in value was equivalent to 595 grams of silver. All right. Now, 1,446 years later, it's almost a 13x difference, 13 times. 85 grams of gold, look at it, it's at 13,000 Canadian dollars. And silver, 595 grams, is equal to, in value, approximately 1,000 Canadian dollars. So at National Zakat Foundation, we go with the gold nisab, all right? Meaning the 85 grams of gold as the standard value. Now, a conversation regarding zakat anniversary date. What is this anniversary date? Your zakat anniversary date is the day you first reached nisab. Now, folks usually say this. I don't know when I reached nisab. I didn't even know that I was obligated to pay zakat. Oh boy, what do I do then? So the second point, if the date is unknown, a Hijri date can be estimated and used every year. Zakat is not necessarily due in Ramadan, and it should not be delayed. So, for example, you first reached nisab on the 15th of Ramadan, 1445, which means last year. Your zakat is due on 15th of Ramadan every single year if you continue to attain the nisab. All right. Now, what is zakat paid on? How do we determine what zakat is paid on? Here are the asset classes upon which zakat is to be paid. Cash and cash-like assets, debts owed to you, money lent to others that will be repaid, shares and investments, so your TFSA, your RSP, RESP, your pensions, gold and silver coins, ingots, jewelry, etc. Some fixed assets, business inventory, and other business assets. These are all liable to zakat. All right. Now, you pay zakat if you meet the following criteria. So take note of this, dear attendees. All right. Number one, you got to have complete ownership of the wealth. Wealth has to be free of haram income. Wealth meets the nisab threshold. 1 lunar year passes over the wealth after attaining the nisab amount. We'll talk about this fourth point very, very shortly, or inshallah ta'ala during the Q&A. Now here, take note of this. How should you calculate your zakat? There are 3 simple steps, because at National Zakat Foundation, our goal is not only to ask you for your zakat and distribute it. We want to make sure that you understand this pillar of Islam. And I'm not an employee of the NZF, but I'm really so proud of this organization, mashallah. And that's why I give my zakat to NZF always. SubhanAllah, the care that this organization has in ensuring that people know how to calculate their zakat. They should learn how to calculate their zakat, right? So this is remarkable. At NZF, the goal is to simplify the complicated, to make it as hassle-free for all of you. So step 1, find net zakatable assets. You figure out your zakatable assets, subtract deductibles, that'll give you your net zakatable assets. Step 2, check against the nisab. If your net zakatable assets is greater than or equal to nisab, in our case, what did we say it is? 13,000 Canadian dollars, okay? Then zakat must be paid. If your net zakatable assets is less than the nisab, then no zakat is due. And finally, the third step, calculate zakat. Zakat payable is 2.5% multiplied by the net zakatable assets. All right. Now, zakat and deductible debts. Now, this is where it gets interesting for you students, right? You have OSAP and you have your student loans. Now, sorry, I just mentioned OSAP. Don't want to, offend those who are out of province or tuning in from outside of Ontario and all of that. Student loans. Student loans are considered long term, but if you are making payments towards the student loan, okay? So let's take another example, mortgage, right? Someone has mortgage. Mortgage is a long-term loan. So our scholars have divided debts into two categories. Category one, short-term debts. Short-term debts are due within the 12 lunar months, and they're allowed to be deducted in full. Long-term debts can be deducted also with some considerations. So, as you can see, not making payments. If you're not making any payments toward your long-term loan right now, then there's nothing to be deducted. All right? You assume it doesn't exist because you're not making no payments. Now, if you are making payments, you are committed to a monthly repayment program for your long-term debt, then you may deduct 12 lunar months of upcoming principal payments alone, not including interest. So let's look at an example to make things easy to understand. All right. Example is long-term debt deductible. So let's say you calculated all of your current, wealth, your holdings. You all get that together and it comes out to $20,000. Now, you are on a long-term loan repayment, okay, plan. On a long-term loan repayment plan. This is how the deduction works. Look at the statement of your monthly loan payment. Let's say it's 550 bucks. 500 is going towards the principal and 50 is going towards the interest. So what you are going to do is you're allowed to look at the amount which is going towards the principal so that some people are clear on this. This usually comes up during Q&A. What's this principal and all that? What this means is you have, let's say, $50,000 of loan. It's a long-term loan, all right? Now, 50,000 is the principal. But guess what the bank or the loan giver is going to do? Are they going to ask you for 50,000 after, let's say, to be paid over 10 years or 7 years or 15 years? No, they're going to add interest on it. So you won't be paying back 50K. You'll be paying back, God knows, 60, 70K. You understand me? So the principal is the original amount that you took. That's the meaning of principal. So on your statement, you will see how much of my monthly loan payment is going towards the principal and how much is going towards the interest. You're allowed to deduct only the principal portion of your monthly payment. So your annual deductible becomes 500 bucks multiplied by 12 equals 6,000. Net zakatable assets, therefore, 20K minus 6K equals 14,000. Now, is my 14,000 that I'm left over, is this above the nisab? So what is the nisab we established? 13,000, right? 85 grams of gold, the Prophet ﷺ said, if a person is in possession of wealth equivalent to 85 grams of gold, you know what that is? That means I'm a rich person. I'm obligated to pay zakat. So 85 grams of gold, because of the price keeps fluctuating, it's equivalent to 13,000 Canadian dollars. So my 14K is more than 13,000. So therefore, I am considered a rich person. I gotta pay zakat. So zakat calculation is 2.5% multiplied by 14K, 350 bucks. Now, just as a side point, folks, I just want you to look at this and ask yourself, subhanAllah, on 14,000, only $350. That looks so tiny of an amount, right? And that's the point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not burden us. He asks for so less. And then some of you on the call, inshallah, you'll become high net individuals one day. And then you'll notice that pretty much 6 months of the year, you'll be working for the government. 50% is going to be the tax bracket. Can you imagine that? And yet Allah asks us for so less. Allahu Akbar. Something incredible. So are there any questions at this point in time before we go ahead?
Assalamu alaikum, folks. I know you are all muted by default. but if you were to put questions in the chat, we can definitely take them up, inshallah. And also, if you wanted to ask a question verbally, given the right time and pause in the middle, we can ask you to unmute and speak your question out as well, inshallah. And just a quick question here. About whether or not slides will be available. Yes, we are able to provide a copy of the deck to everyone, as well as the recording of this session, inshallah, after the webinar is complete.
Excellent. So
There is a
Suleiman,
question, however, Imam Shoaib, asking about what are short-term loans. So if you maybe you want to just quickly revisit that. Thank you.
I will do that. I believe the first question that came in was from Suleiman. So Suleiman is wondering, is it 1,300 or 13,000? It's 13,000, as you can see on the slide. All right, Suleiman, 85 grams of gold. You can log on every year onto goldprice.org, goldprice.org, and check the per gram price of gold and multiply that by 85, and you will find the current nisab for that year because the gold price changes. So sometimes this 13,000 will be, more, or sometimes it'll be less than 13,000, right? Depends on the price. So if you don't have 13K, you don't have to pay zakat. That is correct, Brother Suleiman. However, there are some considerations, and that's why you got to stick around, okay? Don't bounce off of the webinar and you're like, Imam Shuaib said, and that's it. And I always have less than 13K. I don't need to pay no zakat. So I'm not saying you're going to do that, but stick around, inshallah. All right, next question is, what are short-term loans again? Sister Fatima, short-term loans are loans that you will pay back within 1 lunar year. I recognize that as Muslims, our Sharia, we don't follow the Gregorian calendar. We follow the Hijri calendar, okay? The Islamic calendar. And so short-term loans are, let us say, a person has their zakat anniversary date, 15th of Ramadan. So if you know you are going to be paying your loans back, right? Someone gave you money. So you took out a loan from someone and you know you are going to be paying back that person, right? So that is the meaning of a short-term loan. So you are not allowed to deduct that because you will be paying that within the upcoming lunar year. So I hope that clarifies. When do we calculate based on silver nisab? Very good question, Sister Fatima. It really depends on you. I personally, this is not National Zakat Foundation personally, I follow the silver nisab. You know why? The need is so immense. At NZF, there's a wait list of over 2,000 families right now. And subhanallah, generally and I'll talk about this more during the Q&A, we look at the devastating images coming from Sudan, from Gaza, from other war-torn regions around the world, and our gut reaction is, boom, I want to send my money to those causes. But we forget that right here in our neighborhoods, there are Gaza evacuees, there are Sudan evacuees who are not able to pay rent. So subhanallah, we forget that local need, right? And so on one hand is that local need, on the other is if we go with the silver nisab, which is so less, right? 1,000 Canadian dollars, more people will be obligated to pay zakat. And I like that. Let more and more people pay zakat because the need is so immense. All right. So this is a personal choice that you can follow, inshallah ta'ala. So I hope that clarifies. All right, so here we move ahead. When do we, hold on a sec. For some reason, okay, perfect. So when do we calculate, I'm sorry, there is something finicky happening with okay, for some reason. Okay, Alhamdulillah, things are fine now. Okay, so let's come back to the slide. How to calculate zakat on assets, okay? Just to make sure that we are still on track. This is how you calculate your zakat. You figure out your zakatable assets, cash and cash-like assets. These are fully zakatable at 2.5%. Then good debts that are owed to you, fully zakatable at 2.5%. What this means is Musa comes to you and asks for a loan. He wants to purchase, mashallah, tabarakallah, the latest MacBook Air with the M4, M5 chip, God knows which chip now. And he took out, asked you, hey, can you give me some money? And you're like, yeah, I can loan you 2 grand. All right, you've given 2 grand to Musa. And now you're confident Musa is not going to run away with that $2,000. Musa will return that $2,000 to you for sure. So you assume, you pretend as if you still have the $2,000. You understand me? This is what good debts means. You know that this person is not a fraud, he's not a cheat, he's not running away with your money. So you assume as if that money is still with you and you add it to your zakatable assets. Now, investments, jewelry, and fixed assets. Here, more discussion is required. Now, stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, vested stock options, all of this good stuff, right? And we can, look at specific scenarios if you have that, inshallah ta'ala, in mind. Okay, let me take this question that's come in from Brother Ammar. Is zakat on good debts applicable even if you have not received that money in the lunar year? The general principle, Brother Ammar, is yes. Okay, the general principle is yes. Why though? Because someone has to pay zakat on that money. The person who has taken that loan from you clearly is not going to pay zakat on that money, correct? So who gets to pay it? So if you know it's a good debt, you just pay on it. Now, if it's a very sizable amount that has left you and it's long term, then our scholars have mentioned, sure, you can keep it out of your net zakatable assets. All right. But again, the general rule I want you to know, for specific scenarios, you can, inshallah ta'ala, ask that during Q&A time. And at NZF, we have this awesome service called one-on-one private and highly confidential zakat consultations. So inshallah, all of that will be on the last slide. All right, so zakat on investments. These are long-term holdings. Zakat is due on the liquid portion of a company's market cap. It's estimated at 30% of your total investment. Now, note, short-term holdings are zakatable at 100%. Now, this applies to all equity investment vehicles, vested stock options, if exercisable and convertible into cash. So let us look at an example and let us elaborate upon this thing called proxy. What is proxy? You see, proxy is an estimation, and it estimates the zakatable assets in a company based on the current assets. So cash, receivables, inventory, raw materials, and it excludes fixed assets like buildings, machinery, long-term investments, and it is derived from the balance sheets of publicly traded companies. But why 30%? Because this is the zakatable percentage, all right, that our scholars have determined and also vetted by the AOFI, all right, the International Consortium of Scholars globally who look at modern investment vehicles and financial instruments, all right, to determine how the Sharia will apply. So zakatable percentage varies by company. 30% is a reasonable estimate for most cases. All right. Now, let me just elaborate upon this 30% as well. Let us say you have stocks of various companies, all right? And your goal is that I'm not a swing trader, I'm not a day trader, I am in this for the long haul, all right? You're in this for the long haul. Great, wonderful. How will you calculate your zakat? Going with the example that 15th of Ramadan is your zakat anniversary date. As we mentioned, 15th of Ramadan is an arbitrary date. It doesn't have to be in the month of Ramadan, even that a person gives their zakat. But let's say 15th of Ramadan, you log on to your Quest Trade account or investments accounts or whatever, and you look at your portfolio value. All right. Let us say it is sitting at $10,000. 30% of 10,000, and then of that 2.5%. That is how you'll calculate your zakat. Okay. Now, please don't get confused. Once a brother asked me this, he said, Imam, 30%, that is like ignoring the other 70% of my stock portfolio. I'm like, pause there. That's not what's happening here. The proxy, it is looking at the zakatable portion of your holdings. So as you can see on the screen, not all investment vehicles are the same. First, identify the zakat applicable portion of your investments. then see how freely you can access those funds. So this is also something interesting that has to be taken into account. How much access do you have to those funds? Generally, your TFSA is fully accessible to you. So here we go. TFSA is fully accessible, and therefore 100% of the Zakat Act applicable portion is considered in your calculation. All right. Zakat due is market value of shares multiplied by 0.3, which is the 30% multiplied by 2.5%. 2.5% is the zakat rate, right? That the Sharia has obligated. So 2.5% mathematically is 0.025. Understood. Now here also, what's important to note is I usually give this example, right? And the slide before this has already explained it, but just to drive the point further home, you start a bakery business. That bakery business, what are you going to have in that bakery? You're going to have machinery, you're going to have ovens, you're going to have a counter, a cashier, machine. Are these physical assets of the bakery business, are these zakatable? The answer is no. The machinery, the oven, and all that, it is not zakatable. What is zakatable is the income that you generate, okay? And some other considerations, but this is a high level understanding. So when you are a long-term stockholder, you are now a part owner of that company whose stocks you own. And so we need to see the zakatable portion of your ownership stake. And that is what that proxy 30% is doing, determining the zakatable portion of your ownership, and then 2.5%. Now, RSP, this probably doesn't really apply that much to you folks, but here, this is the idea that RSPs are generally partially accessible. So what happens every single year, you engage in a theoretical exercise, and you will say to yourself, if I were to liquidate my RRSPs, what's going to happen? The government would slap you with a fine, and so you have a 10% to 30% range where a withholding tax is applied, so you're allowed to deduct that. Now, to the net amount, you apply the proxy if it is invested in long-term stocks. Generally, that is the case with RSPs, it's long-term. And then 2.5% on that. If you have only cash sitting in your RSP, then 100% of that will be zakatable, so 2.5% on the cash amount. Now comes your area, people, the RESP, Registered Education Savings Plan. This is where you got to pay attention. Now, what happens? Same idea. RESP for, let's say, parents who have been investing in the RESP for their kids, what are they going to do? Same idea. Every year, they'll do a theoretical exercise. Hey, if I were to liquidate my RESP, what would happen? The government would take back all of its own contributions. What you're left with is your contributions and any returns on it. If the RESP was invested in stocks, then 30% on that, and then 2.5%. Okay. Now, with all of this conversation regarding stocks and whatnot, goes without saying that please invest only in halal stocks. You can't just invest willy-nilly. Oh, I'm going to follow my favorite YouTuber, and he just said, buy high, sell low. That's what happens, right? People, they get burnt. Oh, yeah, oh my God, I'm going to make, I'm going to turn overnight multi-billionaire. And so, subhanAllah, be cognizant of the fact that not all companies are halal. So you can run it through Sharia screeners. Islamically is one, Zoya is one. Again, not endorsed by National Zakat Foundation, but this is something that you can look at, inshallah ta'ala. Don't just buy stocks of companies because, oh my God, they are doing amazing, and so let me buy it. And it may actually be in weapons. It may be an AI company that is not using AI for good reasons, but to target civilians and things like this. So be cognizant of that, because we will be questioned about how we earned our money on Judgment Day. Now, non-registered taxable investment accounts. These accounts are fully accessible and are not subject to special withdrawal restrictions. Therefore, 100% of the zakat applicable portion is included when calculating your zakat liability. Now, pensions, again, this perhaps doesn't apply to any of you folks, but just as an academic exercise, Lira, CPP, DCPP, DBP, all of these are exempt from zakat. Why though? Because folks don't have access to that money. It may be under their name, they have ownership, but they don't have access to it. Okay, so we would say you would pay zakat when you retire. And again, this doesn't apply to you, but we will still quickly go over it for the sake of academics. Okay, and inshallah, not just that, you can help your parents or grandparents, right, who are retired. So let's consider an uncle or auntie have worked their entire life. They have $500,000 in their pension. Okay, let's say it was in their RSP. At the time of retirement, the RRSP turns into a RIF, Registered Retirement Income Fund. So are we going to say to uncle or auntie, hey, 2.5% every year on your $500,000? That would be a staggering $8,750 in zakat. So our scholars have determined no, that is too much, and Islam, the Sharia, has not come to be a burden. It has come as a mercy. All right, people. So what is the alternative? The alternative is consider the RIF as an investment property. So uncle and auntie, how much do you need to live in the entire year? They're like, man, I don't have that many expenses. Just 35K is what I need. Okay, so we'll say 2.5% on your 35K. That is what you'll pay zakat on. So that is the idea here, inshallah. Zakat on gold and jewelry. Before we head on, let me quickly see what is going on in the chat box. So folks, don't shy away from asking questions. You can ask, inshallah, by unmuting yourself or typing it in the chat box, inshallah.
If you're, Sheikh, if you're good, I can ask Ammar. He had a couple of questions. If you can unmute and ask, are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Brother Ammar, would you wanna? I'll unmute you and you can inshallah ask.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam Ammar.
Thank you so much for holding this meeting. It's very valuable for me for someone like me who has never like formally learned the rules. So I did come a little bit late just because I slept very late, due to late night prayer.
Of course, of course.
I joined around like 1:20, so I missed the first 20 minutes. And I am guessing it was mainly just like an introduction and not like sort of the nitty-gritty that we got into regarding like the gold nisab, and then like stocks, free flowing money, debt. That's when it all started, I'm guessing, like the calculation.
I think the recording will be provided. That is true. That's where the meat of the webinar was, but there were very important foundations that were laid in the first 20 minutes. Okay.
Yeah,
So you definitely
what I
will
remember.
have to go back to that, inshallah ta'ala. So I'm
Inshallah.
reading what you've written here. Also, would the good debt have to be paid within a time limit to be counted as zakatable? If so, what is the time frame? I'm guessing approximately 1 calendar lunar year. So the good debt, really, it depends between you and your friend, Musa. Okay, let's say Musa has asked you for a loan. He wanted to purchase whatever, a MacBook, and you gave him $2,000. Now, it really depends what your understanding is between you and Musa. Okay, so if he is going to pay it after 5 years or he's going to pay it after 5 months, right? The point is that this is money that Musa is a super honest guy. He will be returning your money back. So you just assume every year that the money is still in your possession. Understood? That's what it means.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if it's a sizable amount, not 2 grand, but $50,000, right? And it's for long term, then we can say, okay, it's not even part of your calculation anymore because, he'll give it after 5 years then. But if it's a small amount and whatnot, and really, this goes back again, in principle, we would say, is it considered a good debt? Khalas, let's not get into the, subjectivity. Oh, for a multi-millionaire, 50K is like poof, peanuts, right? So
Yeah,
should
yeah.
be deducted, should he not? So it gets into, look at this, at the end of the day, $2,000, what's 2.5% of $2,000? So if you're a math major, inshallah
Like
ta'ala, you
50
should do
bucks.
this very quickly. So it's $50. So 2.5% of 2,000. So what would you gain by subtracting $2,000 because Musa has taken a loan
Yes.
from your, you want to just say $50 and you recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the most generous. The Prophet, peace be upon him, has taken an oath 3 times. I swear by the one in whose hands is my soul. I swear by the one in whose hand is my soul, that whatever you spend in the path of Allah will never decrease, never decrease, never decrease. So
Inshallah.
inshallah, let's be.
So I mean, it's the question that I'm constantly having is just like to try to remove the subjectivity as much as possible so that I can calculate like a reliable amount. I actually don't have any good debt. Like personally, like I haven't lent any money outside of very little amounts, which is difficult to even track, honestly, just because it would be like very small amounts.
Yeah.
But like, let's say you were to do, lend someone like 30 to 40% of your savings, and you'll get it back, but you don't know when. And so I guess if you're not sure when, in that period of time, you can try to avoid including it. And then when you are sure that you will get it back in the next maybe year or two, then I guess you could re-include it. Like, would that be like a reasonable sort of
I think that would
way
be
to?
reasonable, inshallah ta'ala, but I would highly suggest to you to book a one-on-one consultation so that we're
Inshallah.
sure that we're doing things right. This is a pillar of Islam, and we want to make sure
Inshallah,
we get it
inshallah.
right, inshallah.
Please share the link for that at the end of the session if you can. I would
Of
be
course.
very interested.
Of
Inshallah.
course, Ammar. Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So you have also asked, most companies in the S&P 500 are involved in international warfare industry, prison, this and that, and other non-halal and sim. Inshallah, we can learn about a company's price before investing in them. Good, good, good. Okay, so you're just putting that comment for everybody to read. Yes, that's correct. Sister Fatima says, why is zakat applicable? Why is zakat applicable portion 30%? I talked about this in detail on that slide. The idea, remember the bakery example I gave, Sister Fatima? You started a bakery, and in that bakery, mashallah, you have your oven, you have the refrigerator, you have all these physical assets, right? Physical assets are non-zakatable. So if you are a long-term investor in a company, meaning more than 1 lunar year, you have parked your money in there, that is your ownership stake in that company. And these companies are into manufacturing, they've got factories, they've got machinery, they've got all of these things which are non-zakatable. So we want to figure out what is your zakatable portion of the ownership of your stake in those companies. So you look at on your zakat anniversary date, you look at the value of your stock portfolio, 30% of that gives you the zakatable portion. And then 2.5% on that is your zakat due. Okay? Now, gold and silver jewelry. Gold and silver is zakatable at the standard rate of 2.5% in any form. All right? And this is the AOFI and the NZF position. Now, gold nisab is 85 grams, silver is 595 grams. If gold and silver is mixed in a jewelry or a piece of jewelry, only the gold and silver content is zakatable. There is no zakat. As you can see at the bottom of the slide, there is no zakat on precious stones or other precious metals. So platinum, palladium, unless they are held for trade. So no zakat on rubies, sapphires, on diamonds and any of that. It's only on gold and silver. Okay, so you have to figure out if you have a piece of jewelry, a necklace, for example, a bracelet, a ring, you figure out how much weight of that is actual gold or silver and how much is coming in from the stones. And who will give you this information? Generally, it's the jeweler that gives you this information, okay? And so you can deduct from the weight of that and then 2.5% on the market value of that piece of jewelry. Now, we do understand that there are differences of opinions. Some scholars say that there is no zakat to be paid on jewelry that a lady wears. Our position at NZF is that there is zakat to be paid every year, again from the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, land and properties, perhaps this doesn't matter to you folks either, so we can just zoom by it. If there are specific questions, y'all can ask, inshallah ta'ala. So fixed assets, properties, equipment, land. So generally, fixed assets are exempt from zakat. Examples are real estate property, undeveloped land, equipment, patents, spare parts, and other operational assets. Now, exceptions acquired with the intention to trade. Example, flipping houses. So you're flipping houses, properties, buying equipment to resell at a profit. Assets therefore become trading assets. Okay, so the example that we can give is someone who is investing in pre-construction projects, whether it's condo projects or houses or something of that nature, right? What is your intention? If your intention is that that'll be my second home, then no zakat on it. As you can see here on this slide, personal residence. Your personal residence is 100% exempt from zakat. No zakat on the house that you live, no zakat on the cell phone that you have, no zakat on the car that you drive, on the laptop that you own, on the computer, that no zakat on these things, because these are things that you need for your daily life. Is that clear? You may own more than one personal residence, and that's fine as well. Now, if that property is income generating, the default is fixed assets are exempt from zakat. So the value of that condo, right, that is non-zakatable. But if it's bringing in money, all right, then that income becomes zakatable. So real estate investments, only the unspent rental income is subject to zakat. What do we mean by unspent rental income? Look, if you're a landlady, landlord, you've got tenants, you've got this money coming in, then there is money utilized for the upkeep of that property, maintenance costs, this and that. So clearly your money will be used in that. So a simple way of looking at this is it's just another revenue stream. So you're just adding that income into your net worth. Okay, so it is liable to zakat. That this is what this third point is saying. Now, renting primary residence, only unspent rental income from rented portions. Example, a person's basement suite is rented out, right? So that income will be subject to zakat. So you'll just add it as if it's another salary that you are getting. Now, lease assets, principal value is exempt, but unspent lease income is subject to zakat. Now, undeveloped land. Someone has land that is undeveloped. What is the general rule? It is exempt from zakat. Personal use, if allocated for a primary residence, it remains exempt. Income generating, still exempt, but unspent lease income is subject to zakat, as I explained in the previous slide. Exception, if purchased with intent to trade, it becomes a trade asset, and zakat is due on its market value. Now, it's sometimes, a person purchases land and then they don't really have an intention behind it. No zakat to be paid. And this tells you again, speaks to Allah's, honor system that He has. Ain't no auditing firm coming after you, CRA or KPMG or anyone. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is watching. And so we want to do our due diligence, inshallah. So with that, it's Q&A time, folks. And if you have any more questions beyond what we can cover today, then this slide tells you all the ways you can get in touch with us. Email, one-on-one zakat consults, zakat calculator, and inshallah ta'ala, through this, you can speak to us and we can help you navigate zakat. So coming back to the chat box now. What did you mean by the silver nisab? If someone has total money, at least 1,000, do they pay zakat on that, or is it only for 13,000? So what I am saying, Sister Sarah, here is that if you have $1,000 in your account, after all bills, everything has been paid, that means you are now defined as a rich person. Okay, so then we will tell you to look into all of your what makes you a rich person. So we will look at the value or the money sitting in your various accounts, your investments accounts, your checking accounts, your student accounts, and just start doing the calculation. So what we are simply saying is following the silver nisab, $1,000 is what defines you as a rich person. So now you'll engage in that whole entire calculation. Now, after, let's say we do all the calculation, we do the deductibles, we do everything, and we notice, oops, you dipped below the $1,000. No zakat to be paid. Okay. Ammar says, if you have gold, silver, but are not able to estimate the total amount of either, how may that be calculated? Use your best estimate. Okay. And the whole idea is that when you do your best estimate, you will overpay, you will not underpay. And so, you know what? Sometimes I have folks telling me, you know, Imam, just to give you an understanding of how, mashallah, sometimes people think of this. They're like, you know what? I understand the proxy rule and all of that, the zakatable portion of my ownership in companies in the stock market that I've invested in. But you know, if I take 30% of the stock value and then 2.5%, the money becomes so less, so less. No, man, I'm not going to use the proxy. I'm going to do 2.5% on the stock portfolio value that I have on my zakat anniversary day. I say to them, marhaban bikum, most welcome. You will overpay, and that is never a problem. Allah will give you even more. You don't, the crime and the sin occurs when a person underpays, but overpayment is never a problem, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. All right, beautiful. Nadia Anwar asks, if I have money from a bursary in my account that I have set aside for future tuition fees, do I still have to pay zakat on that? Here is an important consideration. And that is, first of all, you recognize that how much will be the zakat on it? Will it be to such a level that suddenly my tuition I won't be able to pay? Or is it just a tiny amount? Like we just did this calculation, right? On $2,000, it is $50. On $4,000, it's $100. On $40,000, it's $1,000, right? That's how less zakat is. So use your best judgment and look here and see, okay, I have this for my future tuition. If I were to pay zakat on it, you know, Allah knows what other scholarships doors are going to open to me, how Allah is going to create me, you know, a certain income opportunity that I didn't even know existed. And all of that, and those doors opened up to you because you did ihsan with Allah. And this is why I remind folks in my khutbahs, in my lectures, in my talks, which I, by the way, highly recommend to all of you. Timeless Quran is a program I teach online for adult men and women. Safe space to ask whatever questions or things you have. You can find all of that, inshallah, on my website, imamshuaib.com, or you can follow me on Instagram and send me a DM. I'll send all of that to you. This is NZF's platform, so I'm just putting in a shameless plug here. So you can follow me on Insta and ask your questions about the different programs that I teach. So Allah says in Surah Rahman.
Sorry to cut you off. So, Imam Shoaib, just a quick thing on bursaries and OSAP money that people might get that are for like future expenses, right? Which might be very near term. Um, I believe that an important consideration would also be, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is whether the student or the person was already above the nisab or not, right? They might not have been above the nisab, and bursaries might be the first time that they have enough money that they're above the nisab, but a year hasn't passed yet. So is that an important consideration here as well to kind of look at as so if you could just speak to that. Thank you.
I think so. Brother Zaid brings a very good point, in which case a person would then not be liable to pay nisab because that amount from the bursary came in, it hasn't sat with you for a year, right? And so, again, I would encourage you to send an email so that we can look into this even further to make sure we give you a very accurate answer, inshallah ta'ala. Because look, at the end of the day, Sister Nadia, we don't want you suddenly to be unable to pay your tuition, right? Because this money was kept for future tuitions. And now Imam Shuaib says, okay, I got to pay zakat. I paid zakat and whoop, I can't pay my tuition. I'm in trouble now. And now I'm taking out loans, right? And stuff like that. So we don't want that kind of a hardship to be incurred. So good point, Brother Zaid, you also mentioned. Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. Brother Omar Ikram here puts zakat@nzfcanada.com. That is the email to send. You can also book a one-on-one, as you can see, consultation. Then there's the zakat calculator, so you can do that, inshallah. Any more questions, folks? We are here 1 minute past the hour. If there are any questions, inshallah, please do ask.
If anybody wants to speak up as well, just mention in the chat and inshallah we can unmute you. And in the meanwhile, I'll just thank Imam Shuaib Mansoori again for conducting this Zakat workshop. It's a very valuable resource and the right timing as well in Ramadan. Very, very much needed. A lot of people have a lot of questions that they need to address before they pay their zakat. So inshallah, really, really hope and pray that this was helpful in that regard. And I also just wanted to thank all the participants for joining us today. This was the first national Zakat workshop that we arranged for the MSAs. We had been receiving a lot of requests from local MSAs about conducting a workshop on campus, and we suggested that the best way to do that is that we arrange a national one. So inshallah, this will be like a regular feature from National Zakat Foundation going forward, and we will also be sending out these invites to all of the MSAs, inshallah, in with enough time to sign up on. Jazakallah khair for everyone to on joining this. So there's no further questions. Let me see quickly. Yes, I think there's no further question. All right, so just take a note of these resources, and if you still have any other further questions later on, you guys can mail those to us, inshallah. We're also doing the recording, so we'll share that across as well. Inshallah. Barakallah feekum.
And very quickly, if I may just add, folks, I really do mean it, alhamdulillah, that NZF is the only charity here in Canada we're blessed to have that not a single penny leaves Canadian borders. And so it is really Muslims helping Muslims. You'll never find anyone from overseas saying, oh, the needy in Canada, let us fundraise zakat in Pakistan to send over to the needy in Canada. Let us fundraise in Nigeria to send to the needy in Canada. It doesn't happen, right? So we are the ones here who are responsible for the vulnerable in our neighborhoods, in our community. So do consider giving local, insha'Allah ta'ala.
All right, Jazakallah khair everyone for joining. Oh, Amar, you have a question? Okay, let me unmute you.
Thank you. So just before we head out, I just wanted to ask if the slides would be posted anywhere and where they might be accessible.
Yes, inshallah, we will share the slides as well as the recording. So
Okay.
the recording will basically cover all the slides. So we will share the
Yes.
recording for sure, inshallah, with all the
Where
attendees.
would it be shared?
I believe this should be mailed out. So, and I will also share this with the coordinators, the MSA coordinators, so they can share those with you guys.
Yeah, inshallah. Thank you so much. I
You're
really appreciate your guys.
Jazakallah khair for joining.
Jazakumullah khair. Absolute pleasure to be with all of you. May you be blessed with Laylatul Qadr. May Allah Azza wa Jalla accept all of your ibadat and your du'as. And keep going strong, folks. Don't just say, oh, it's the 29th night. We're almost at it. No, this is the time to exert ourselves, to exhaust ourselves. Really, I do mean it. And as one of my shuyukh, he would mention to us, that brothers and sisters, on the day of Eid, you'll forget all of that lengthy standing. You'll forget all of that. So, the fatigue, the exhaustion. So put in your very best, make lots of du'as for yourself, for the ummah, and inshallah, I hope that Allah allows us to meet soon. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.